Hello everyone. This is lesson 17, Abraham's blessing. What I'm going to try to do in this lesson is make the way of the soul very practical. This is the type of information you usually do not get in graduate school. Let me tell you about a couple that I'm communicating with right now. Let's call them Bill and Carmen. But it's a real problem that they're having right now. Bill is 45, Carmen is 38. 10 years ago, they agreed that they would not have children. But 5 years ago, Carmen felt an emptiness in her life, and she felt that she wanted more purpose and meaning, and changed her mind and wanted a child. Bill did not feel that financially they could afford it. They're living on the edge. Furthermore, his time is very precious to him. He loves the ocean. He dives in the ocean. He snorkels. He surfs. And he doesn't have a propensity for enjoying children that much. He enjoys going to his friends and playing with the children for a while, but he can't see him doing that as a father, and he knows the child would know that. So now it's 5 years later, and they're still discussing it, and there's great tension in their lives because on one hand they want to stay together, on the other hand she feels an emptiness because she doesn't have a child. Now, that's a very complex problem, but it is, I think, an example of the problems that we all have. Now, let me tell you what I do when I get into a problem like that. First of all, I have to remind myself of Abraham's covenant. Let's read it together. Being said to Abraham, "Go from the land of your tribe and your father's house." In other words, go from all your previous ideas, give them up, and be in the moment. And go to the earth that I will show you. Now that's very vague. What he's saying is go to the promised land, or the promised earth, go to the Garden of Eden, go to Nirvana, go to the kingdom that I will show you. Not that your mind will show you, but that I will show you. Then he gives the reward if we do that. And I will make you into a great people. And I will bless you, and I will magnify your name greatly, and you will be a blessing to yourself and to the world. Now, over on the edge of the page, we have some of the blessings that we can be promised in general when we do follow this covenant. We will end up with the ability to be in the beginning. We will live more and more from the now. We will be movement from stillness rather than movement from busyness. We will grow in the ability to love it all. Whatever is happening to us, we will be able to see it with the tree of the knowledge of life and love it as perfect just the way it is. We will have the ability to communicate continuously with Spirit. Spirit will be one with us. We'll never be alone. In any situation, we will be able to be in the beginning and begin to get our answers. We will have the ability to seek and to find. We will know how to seek answers, and we will know when we have found them. Ability to see and adore people on the way of the soul. Not everyone can see people on the way of the soul. They're single. They are different than others. They're one with themselves. They're not valued by people who are divided. These are the Joan of Arcs. So we will have the ability to see and adore these people. We'll have the ability to love and to love others and to be ourselves. Now those are the blessings, the general blessings that come out of living the covenant. Let's look at what Jesus says about these extraordinary people who live the covenant. Jesus said, "When you should peer upon he who was not begotten inward out of a woman, prostrate yourself onto your face and worship him. He who is there, he is your father," and he would say, "He is your mother." On the edge of the page, we see a mother who's extraordinary. She's in the moment with her child. A Joan of Arc is extraordinary. A person who lives the covenant is extraordinary. And Jesus is saying, when you should peer upon such a person who was not begotten inward out of a woman, who was begotten by spirit, not by the flesh of a woman, prostrate yourself onto your face and there worship him. He who is there is your father and mother. So we see the divinity, when we see someone who is living the covenant and who is living the blessings, we see divinity. So being said to Abraham, "Go from the land of your tribe and your father's house and go to the earth that I will show you. And I will bless those, the ones who bless you. And I will curse those, the ones who curse you." Now how are we cursed? All of us are cursed when we don't become one with ourselves and one with others. The curses we see on the side of the page here. A person is enslaved by religious dogmas. So a person who is not himself and gives himself to the dogmas of a religion or even of a political party or of society is cursed. A person who eats of the tree of the knowledge of good and bad. So when we don't follow the covenant, we're eating primarily of the tree of the knowledge of good and bad, which is division, which is anxiety, which is not being yourself. The curse is a person full of division, anxiety, stress, worry, depression, and anger. The curse is a person more in oneness with clergy and other authorities than with spirit. So a curse is one is not himself, but is living out the expectations of others. Okay, now back to our couple, Bill and Carmen. Bill and Carmen asked me, what do I do after I remind myself of the goal, which is to be blessed as we are promised in Abraham's covenant? And I told them, I go often to one of Jesus's poems in which he describes the stages that one goes through when one is seeking the solution. This couple is seeking some complex solutions. They both feel that they are being led in different directions that will ultimately divide them, which is very painful for them right now. Let me read Jesus' description of the stages of finding the solution. This couple is not looking for one solution. It's going to be one solution after another, after another, after another that comes from listening to Spirit. Jesus said, "Let not him stop, namely he who seeks as he seeks until he finds." In other words, don't be frustrated. Stay with Spirit and keep seeking. You will find the answer. In other words, the answers exist. Spirit knows those answers. The problem is we are in the way. We have not left our former ideas. We have not left the solutions that are in our mind. So the solution that is in Carmen's mind is to have a baby. The solution that's in Bill's mind is to continue life as they have it. That may not be the solution. They have to be willing to give up those ideas in order to hear the real solution. And when he should find the real solution, he will be troubled. In other words, what we're seeking is something that we are preventing ourselves from recognizing. We're preventing ourselves from recognizing it because we don't want to be upset by the answers that we are seeking often. So we will be troubled. We have to be ready for that. It will. Right now we're living a level of truth and love. To move to a higher level means giving up the present level. And that will cause us trouble. That will cause upset. At first, the vision of what we might be seems like too much, like we can't do it. And when he should find, he will be troubled. And if he should be troubled, in other words, if he sticks with the trouble and does not stop seeking, he will marvel. He will marvel at the solution. The solution is right there, but we're preventing ourselves from seeing it. And marveling, he will come to reign over all. And marveling, he will reign in a different way over himself and over his interactions. So Bill will interact with Carmen differently, and Carmen will interact with Bill differently. The solution is there for them, but they must seek and find it, and they must go through the painful process of being upset in the process. They then ask me, how do you seek and find? And I tell them, we've got to become one with Spirit and listen, and the answer will emerge. And they said, well, how do you do that? And here's what I typically tell people. We're all listening right now. We are one with Spirit. Those ideas are coming to us. We are ignoring them. We don't understand our thoughts and our feelings. The problem is us. Buddha says it this way. With single-mindedness, the seeker quiets his thoughts. He becomes in the beginning. He ends their wandering. Seated in the cave of the heart, he finds freedom. How can a troubled mind understand the way? He's talking about the way of the soul. If a man is disturbed, he will never be filled with wisdom. Your worst enemy cannot harm you as much as your own thoughts, unnoticed and unguarded. But once one masters his thoughts, no one can help you as much. Essentially, he's saying, what I hear in here is that we are being inspired all the time, but we're not aware of it. We haven't mastered our thoughts and our feelings. So that should give us confidence. When we are aware of when those thoughts are coming from our mind and when they're coming from Spirit, and when we're listening to those from Spirit with the tree of the knowledge of life, suddenly our life changes and solutions begin to emerge very rapidly. People have come to me asking how they can begin to master their thoughts and their feelings, how they can begin to recognize the inspired ideas. One of the methods that I've learned, this is how I learned, and so this is what I teach, is that I was taught what is called automatic writing. It's a way of becoming focused on yourself and recognizing ideas from Spirit. Let me explain the process. You get a pad and you get a pen, and you find yourself a quiet place. It could be in a coffee shop, it could be a bench in the park, it could be just sitting at the table, turning off all the music, becoming very still. You want to become in the beginning with a pen and with a pad. Step one is to go from all your previous beliefs about what the problem is and what the solution is and what you need to do in your life to take the next step to be blessed, to be an evolved person at a higher level of wisdom and love. So once you let go of all of your previous beliefs, once you suspend them, you're now a clear slate the Spirit can write upon. So you put your pen to the pad and you listen and you sense. You may hear a word, you may get an image, but whatever you hear, you write down. And you pause until you hear the next word or get a next image. But you're not looking for logic. You're being absolutely empty of all agendas. And you put down one word after another, one image after another. When you have done that, say for about 15 minutes, you'll get a sense that, okay, it's completed. What Spirit wanted to tell me has been told to me. So then you pick up your pad and you look at it and you look for themes. And initially, you'll probably put down words that are illogical. But you begin to see this word is related to this word, this image is related to this word, and you'll begin to get the message the Spirit wants you to get. Now what you're doing is training yourself to be empty of all your previous ideas and to really be transparent to Spirit. Now you continue that process sometimes a couple times a day or more until it begins to flow. All of a sudden, it won't be just one word pause, one word pause. It'll come in phrases. Then it'll begin to come in sentences. As you become empty, it'll begin to be natural. At a certain point, you're going to be able to ask specific questions. For example, you might say, "You've told me this, but I don't know how to implement it. Please tell me." And you'll begin to get specific answers. At that point, you'll know when the answer is coming from Spirit, when often the vocabulary is not yours, often the ideas are things that you've never thought about before, but a person who is listening is always challenging himself, saying, how can I tell when these ideas are coming from me? How can I tell when they're coming from Spirit? Eventually, you'll pick up your own cues. After you've mastered automatic writing, you don't need a pad anymore. You can sit anywhere, on a park bench, in the backyard, and you can get very still and wait for Spirit to begin to speak to you in images, in the sensation, in thoughts. The stage after that is that you'll begin to have conversations with Spirit. You will ask questions, you'll get responses, you'll ask questions about the response. Meanwhile, you're growing in your ability to be empty and to know when Spirit is talking and when you're talking from your own mind. So Abraham, Jesus, Buddha, and Eve were continuously talking to Spirit. They were continuously aware of when Spirit was talking to them and when their mind was talking to them. And that's how they navigated through life. A person who has mastered the art of continuously listening is described in a poem by Jesus. Let me read it to you. A man is comparable to a fisherman wise. A man on the way of the soul, is what he's talking about, is comparable to a fisherman wise, the one who threw his net into the sea. But the word sea means sea of emotions, sea of unconscious emotions. And he conveyed it up from the sea, it full of fish. Fish are ideas, little ones from below. And among them he discovered a great fish, the solution he was looking for. The fisherman wise threw the little ones, threw those little ideas, back down into the sea, and he chose the great fish without trouble. As you move along on the way of the soul, you become a fisherman. You're continuously hunting for the big fish, the idea that will transform you at a higher level of truth and love. When you found that, even though it upsets you, you rejoice. So you choose that great fish without trouble because you know that it leads to a far more evolved, far more fulfilled life. What you see right now on your screen is a picture of me with a friend around a campfire. I live down near the beach, and he lives on the beach. He's on the way of the soul. What we are doing when we sit around the campfire is not talking about politics or usually or the weather. We start by saying often, I'll say to him, Steve, what have you discovered? Meaning, what big fish have you discovered? What have you given up in order to evolve? Because that's our life. He fishes for a living. I write for a living. But we don't talk about that initially. And if what we're interested in is how are we evolving? What tricks has he learned to be better on the way of the soul? He asked me then the same questions, and we have long discussions. It's vital. So I think one of the rewards for being on the way of the soul is that you meet others on the same way, and you learn from them, and you have a unity that you just don't have with other people. It's a unity around being one with the person you love so much, which is spirit. This is the end of lesson 17. I hope you found it more practical and ways that you can apply it to your life. If you like this video, I wish you'd click on like below. If you have comments and questions, please put those below. If you want to continue to read the books, you go to the website www.7771.org. You'll see the overview again of the way of the soul, and you'll be able to take a self-examination to see how you're doing. I look forward to you on lesson 18. Have a great day.